Positive thinking is outdated. My name is Paul Chandy, the pilgrim in progress paving the way to Christ. Positive thinking, outdated, you hear? We hear about positive thinking all the time in the self-help movement, in the personal development movement, personal growth, in companies, in schools. It's a movement, in fact. And I must admit that I have been part of that movement. I've read many books, self-help books, personal development books, growth mindset material that emphasize the importance of positive thinking. I'm not dismissing it completely. However, there is an all-embracing way of thinking, and that is God thinking, and that is love thinking. Without love, we are but a clashing gong. There is no greater love than a man who lays down his life for his friends. Love is patient, love is kind, love is never boastful, and love is enduring or persevering. These are gems that I've got from the Gospel, from Matthew, Luke, and this had a real impact on me. Because I believe positive thinking can be limited. I, for example, can meditate and pray and feel good and positive about myself, and yes, positive about the world. I can engage in pleasurable activities. I love playing, for example, going to the gym. I'd really like to take up squash again. I'd really like to do some boxing. And of course, one of my favourite activities, I love eating. I love the different senses that are evoked when you eat, and the taste and the smell and the sight of the food and eating at good restaurants. All that makes me feel positive. And however, too much of this positive thinking could make me indulge in pleasure thinking, all the things that make me feel good. It could become a kind of indulgence, and then it all becomes about self and you, to make you feel good and to make you feel good. Almost like a kind of panacea for whenever you're feeling sad or in pain. Go to the next restaurant, go to the next spa, play the next sport, and in a sense that becomes an idol. Then I thought about God thinking and love thinking. And what is God about? He's about embracing everyone, welcoming everyone. And the heart of the Christian message is service. Now, if I stick with positive thinking, there are limits. Then I shouldn't be around toxic people. Or I shouldn't be around toxic behaviour. And that could mean, if I take positive thinking literally, if I have a spouse who I feel is being awkward or negative, or doesn't share the same vision as me, or who doesn't want to grow like me, then it's so easy to give up on that spouse. Because I could say she's being toxic, and she's disturbing my flow and positivity. If I have a child who's being rebellious, and suddenly doesn't adhere to the values that I adhere to, or add importance to the things that I adhere to, namely education. Now, if a child acts lazy and wastes his educational potential, there's nothing more than frustrates me. Then it's easy to give up and say, have you ever heard a parent say, he's useless, he's a no-hoper, he's good for nothing? Or if, for example, if my son or a child starts taking drugs, or gets into trouble with the police, or goes to prison, you can say, he's not my problem. You know, we love our child when he's cute and adorable and brings us a lot of positive emotion. But when they start acting in a way that we disapprove of, it's easy to reject them. Now, a disclaimer, I'm not talking about extreme cases. I'm not talking about extreme cases. For example, I knew a very loving mother who was quite heartbroken in a way that her son, she became a drug addict and the son went to prison. And, many drug addicts, they steal, they cheat, they manipulate and they deceive. Or, for example, you might have violent people in your life and you've tried everything and they're causing so much heartbreak that they're really bringing your own health down. That's my disclaimer. However, I once had a thought about how I could do charity work and how I could make a difference. And I used to really admire people like Mother Teresa, who gave up her life, went to another country, and dedicated every minute and hour to helping others, and many other people in the religious vocation. And then I realised that charity begins at home, about being a better father and a better husband, before actually going out to work, and in my case being a better teacher, being a better employee, and being a better citizen. That's where the first charity starts, and that's where the love starts. It's about taking the rough with the smooth, taking the smooth side of them, and taking the rough side of them. And taking the rough side, I must admit, is difficult. So imagine you being in a big quarrel with your spouse or with your child or with your co-worker. It's hard to take the rough side. It is hard to forgive. It is hard to endure their negative personality. It is hard to persevere. But that's what God requires. Lay down your life for others. Love your neighbour as yourself. Without love, you're but a clashing gong. And at the end of it, if you really come from a position of love that only God can give, love conquers all. So that quarrel with your wife or your child or your neighbour or a co-worker, if you respond with love and kindness, gradually you can chisel away at that wall that's separating you. Or gradually you could be chipping away at your own wall. It could be, for example, you might blame your spouse, or you might blame your co-worker, you might blame your child. It could be your own wall of hard-heartedness, of coldness, of selfishness, of arrogance. Chipping away. God is knocking at the door of your heart, or chipping away until those walls are broken down, and what is revealed is compassion and patience and kindness. And once people see that change inside you, change, and that is osmosis. And so that is one way of dealing with so-called toxic people, which positive thinking does not go to that depth or level. Like love. A love that conquers everything. A love that comes from God. A love that loves thy neighbour. There's another quote. And I'll try to remember a story a priest told me. Whoever tries to gain his life will lose it, and whoever tries to lose his life will win it. I've never understood this meaning until today. And a priest gave a story about two men climbing up a mountain. And there was an injured man on the road on this icy cold mountain, blustering snow. So one man said, forget that. I'm going to reach the top and then go to safety. Leave him behind. I've got to think about myself. And the other man took a risk. He went down to the other man, talked to him, encouraged him, nursed him. And then they huddled together, and that warmth saved them while this blustery storm went on. the warmth of each other's body. The next day the storm subsided and they decided to proceed on their journey. And then, as they were climbing and going to a safer point, they saw the other man who had frozen to death. So it's about laying down your life. Sometimes you may be in the most awkward situation, dealing with the most awkward people. God is asking you to bless and baptize those people to come into your life because they're changing something in you. Rejoice when you meet awkward people. It's a great chance to spread the gospel and show the living gospel. I'll give you another story. I've seen many nuns and priests and monks in action. And I remember one particular convent. They took in orphans, they took in people they found on the street, they took in disabled people, severely disabled. And these nuns said, they were full of joy. They worked from morning to evening, serving and doing all sorts of menial tasks and giving all their time and attention to these people. Some of them weren't really trained as nurses, and they did a fantastic job. And I wondered what the secret of their joy was. One was the service and the love in the service, and the other was seeing the beauty in the people that they served. And they said to me, these children, they're really children of God. These people that we have took in, a few were adults or had grown up into adults, they are the ones that teach us. They're the ones that give us joy. They are the ones that are full of love. They are the ones that inspire us, that despite their limitations, have a big smile on their face and are so happy. We are the lucky ones. So think about that. If you feel, and I've seen also parents look after, and I use this word sacrifice, although it's not quite the right word, have so much love and the child is disabled, but they don't feel they're missing out. So always think that in love also, there can be a two-way reaction. There can be a two-way building up. That every person has its importance and significance. This is the Pilgrim in Progress, urging you to adopt love thinking and paving the way to Christ.